Good morning. Good morning. I guess I don't have to do this. Oops. Always gives me a feeling of power. If you'll please find your seats, and I see everybody has, for this morning's service. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Columbia. My name is Pat Moore, and I'm your service leader for today. To those of you that are here with us in the sanctuary, please be advised this service is being streamed on YouTube. And to those of you who are watching the service today, we're glad to have you watching. But we, of course, would rather have you here in person. Also, let us remind you that we have a pre and post Zoom service event, which also runs the YouTube stream of this service. Please make sure also that you read all the announcements in your order of service, and also be sure to read the weekly events that are emailed to you each Thursday, as well as the unigram and the website. I urge you to keep our website, your website, open as a tab on your internet so you can keep up with what's going on. And also, while you're here, please practice social distancing and mask wearing as the board-approved guidelines state. Now you know that masks are optional in the service. At the moment, they're optional except for singing, when you're singing. Okay, today's flowers, I've got a composite here, so bear with me with technology. I'll see if I can do this. The flowers today, which are just gorgeous, talk about spring, have been provided by Jason Cobb and Jim Kimbler in the memory of Jason's sister, Kelly, who was born May 26, 1964. And now let us center ourselves for today's services and remember to silence all your electronic devices as we listen to the prelude.
Our musical prelude this morning is The Gathering of the Birds by Jean-Philippe Rameau.
Thank you, Anna. If you'll please stand and join me in our congregational covenant, it's found in your order of service. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve others in community. Thus do we covenant with one another. Thank you. Our minister is Reverend Stephen Robinson, and on those Sundays when Stephen's not in the pulpit, we present a variety of speakers from this congregation and from the wider community. Unitarian Universalism is a diverse and non-creedal religion. We're a covenantal religion, which means that we don't have to believe the same in order to treat each other the same, with respect, equity, compassion, and dignity. Our community is based on deeds, not creeds. As Unitarian Universalists, we side with love, embracing all people regardless of age, color, race, socioeconomic background, physical ability, or religious background. We especially invite families and young children, and we even have a nursery. We're a welcoming congregation, which means we also embrace LGBTQ individuals. We encourage everybody to wear name tags so we can get to know each other, and board members wear green name tags. And they always welcome your comments, questions, and suggestions. Would the members of the board please stand and be recognized? Oh, we've got several. Thank you. At this time, we'd also like to recognize any guests or visitors who are with us today. Visitors, would you please fill out a visitor's card and put it in the collection plate? There should be one in the back of the chair in front of you. That information will enable us to send you our newsletter and information about events. I guarantee you nobody will come to your door. Can someone take the, thank you. Take the mic, please speak into the microphone. If you're willing and able, let us know your name and where you're from, or if you have guests, please feel free to introduce them and wait for the microphone.
I'm Jenny Verne, most of you know me. This is my college roommate, Jenny Stout. Old. And her partner, John Nelson. They have been locked down in the UK for over 2 years, during which time Jenny had a stroke, so she has difficulty speaking right now. But they're back, and they've moved into Merrill Gardens with us.
Welcome. Pretty soon, Merrill Gardens is going to be an official UU community.
Any other visitors?
Hi, I'm Chuck Ashley, and this is our adopted grandson. His name is Fritz, and he's from Red Bank.
Welcome.
Hello, I'm Sabina Colon. This is my wife, Michelle, our 17-year-old daughter, Coda, our about-to-be 13-year-old son, Ezekiel, and then we have another daughter. She's working right now. She is 18, and she starts USC in the fall, and her name is Corday.
Welcome to all of you.
Yeah, are you a visitor? You want to speak up? Yeah.
My name is Robert Webb. I'm originally from Charleston. Glad to be here today.
Welcome.
That's it.
Anyone else? Thank you, Emilio. When we're further along in our recovery, we'll take time to greet each other, and I'll tell you that you're all welcome to stay and go into the social hall and continue your conversations. But until then, it's something just to look forward to. You can feel free to talk out on the patio. Okay. Today's chalice lighter is Deb Matherly, and she will tell you all about it.
Deb Matherly, and I'm here to say please and thank you in reverse order. Oh, what? Oh, take Michael, okay, sorry. Okay, thank you for welcoming me here just over 4 years ago. My previous 30 years at UUCC in Maryland were good, but not nearly as deep. I continue to feel more welcome, more connected, more enriched, more empowered, and yes, more needed, the more involved I become in UUCC and its reach into our broader community. We find joyful participation in the sorrows of the world. That's Joseph Campbell by way of Barbara Smith. We are all needed and pulled in so many directions, and all are interconnected. I recently saw a Venn diagram. It was talking about a climate journey, but it's broader. Think about what gives you joy? What are your strengths? What needs to be done? Find where they overlap. And for me, right here, right now, that intersection is truly UUCC. Thank you for helping me find my joy, my strengths, and what needs to be done. And I hope the same is true or is becoming true for each of you. And please, as we listen today and journey forward together, exploring denominational changes and other opportunities and challenges ahead, let us look closely and honestly within, listen deeply and mindfully to one another, and share respectfully, honoring one another's dignity and experiences. And as we all learned in kindergarten, please remember, thanks to Robert Fulham, when we go out into the world, we watch for traffic, we hold hands, and we stick together. Thank you.
And Deb is going to be even more empowered this coming year because she's going to be our new president. Thank you for lighting the chalice, Deb. Spirit of light and life coming to us. And now I'd like to introduce our speaker, whom most of you know. As I told you before, this is one of our own members, Rebecca Drennan, who's going to give the sermon today. Rebecca is an interfaith pastor, and she's also a life coach. She describes herself as a mystic who is filled with curiosity. Welcome, Rebecca. And I think first you're going to do the story for all ages, right?
Yes, I am. I'm wondering if any children would come forward. Yeah, good, good. Come sit here. I'm gonna take this. Great. Oh, good. More. There we go. Yeah. Well, I brought something really different and strange today, and I wondered if you could figure out what it is.
Is it a man?
It's a man. Yes.
Is it a Chinese warrior?
A Chinese warrior. Yes, exactly. Do you see him?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's very.
It's
It's what?
sandy.
Yes, it does look sandy. It's a very unusual warrior. Actually, he's been sleeping in the sand for a long, long, long time, and some scientists dug him up. And it stood for a warrior from long, long ago, but he's very different. Have you ever seen anybody like this? No, me either. But when I first looked at him, I thought, gosh, he looks so different. How does he look different? Can you tell? Yes?
Yes. Blue.
Just a minute. What?
Yes.
Yes?
It's blue.
Yeah. And?
It also is, it has different things than we usually have.
Absolutely, very different. And sometimes when somebody's really different, we kind of don't know if we want to talk to them or we're kind of afraid of them. And today we're going to talk to all the big people about talking to people that are different. And I thought He is dressed differently, but what does he have that's the same as us? How many mouths? How many ears? Right. Do you think maybe we're supposed to listen more than speak? 1 and 2. Right, right. Well, the next time at school or wherever you are playing and you see somebody that's different, you can go up and say, yes. And what?
He's basically the same as us.
Absolutely. Basically the same at the middle. Right. Yes.
What's sand?
Yes, with lots of sand. All right. Yes, thank you. All right, I'm going to say you kids can go off to your class in the back. And afterward, if you want to come up and see my doll, it's fine. Here we go. Anna? Okay, let's go. There's Bethany waiting for you. I'm so happy to be with you today. It's just a joy. For opening words, I wanted to share a poem, and I think that any good poem should be read twice. First to kind of get the hang of it, and then see what really stands out the most. And for today's poem, it's written by a man named William Martin. And what he did was take the Taoist book, a Chinese book, called the Tao Te Ching. And then he started using it to to change it so that it spoke to parents, so that it spoke to caregivers, so that it spoke to couples. And this is from the couples one, this poem I'm going to read. And I think it works for partners. It works for children and their parents. It works for older people and their parents. I'll let you decide about this poem. Within you is a place of love and grace, a place without fear, where there is no need to defend or prove, no need to lie or hide. From this place spring words of truth, actions of courage, and a life of love. Wait patiently for the voices of fear in your mind to cease their frantic call to action. Become aware of what the next clear step of love might be. Within you is a place of love and grace, a place without fear, where there's no need to defend or prove, no need to lie or hide. From this place spring words of truth, actions of courage, and a life of love. Wait patiently for the voices of fear in your mind to cease their frantic call to action. Become aware of what the next clear step of love might be. Thank you, William Martin.
I invite the UUCC Adult Choir to come up and join me in She Sings by Amy F. Brennan.
Lovely. It's great to hear our choir in person. If you have a significant joy, sorrow, or concern you'd like to have shared from this pulpit, please phone or email Andrea, our administrator, by noon Friday. If you'd like to speak for yourself before the service begins, pick up one of the candles in the basket in the foyer and come forward and speak briefly when you're requested. And for those of you who are on streaming, if you'd like to have a candle lit, or please text or email Andrea, our administrator, to have it read during the service. And before anyone volunteers, I have 3 candles to light. They're all candles of remembrance. The first one is for Sharon Matchett, who sings in our choir, and most of you know her lovely voice. Her mother died on Friday. She was 103. Her name was Janet Bennett Miller. So let's remember Sharon. The other one is from about somebody that a lot of you might not remember, Ken McLeod. He came with his wife, Carolyn, for years here. They attended the Methodist Church in Sumter, and then they'd come up here whenever they could. Ken died this past week, too. So he's gone to join Carolyn. Finally, I have one more candle of remembrance, and I want to ask Jason and Jim to come up and light the candle while I'm talking here. They're the ones that gave us our flowers, beautiful flowers this morning. They light a candle for Jason's sister, Kelly. She was the second of 6 children and 9 years older than Jason. Because Kelly moved out of the house when Jason was very young, she felt more like an aunt instead of a big sister, he says. That feeling changed as Jason got older, and his relationship with Kelly got stronger. By the time Jason graduated from high school, he was closer to Kelly than any of his older siblings. When Kelly passed, Jason said he felt like he lost his best friend. Jason wants to let the congregation know that he loves and misses Kelly, and he's very grateful to be able to celebrate her life with his new church family. Thank you. Does anyone else have a candle they would like to light for today?
We're Richard and Linda McLeod. We're lighting this candle in celebration of our 35th wedding anniversary, which happens on June 20th. But we'll be leaving for a 5-week cruise this Wednesday, so we have to share this today. We find great enjoyment in traveling and have been to all 7 continents and 87 countries. Once again, we will discover the beauty of our world and the people in it. Richard has a Mark Twain reading about travel that he wants to share.
I love Mark Twain. Every time I read some of his stuff, I think, wish I had said that. And this is about travel, too, and this expresses our thoughts. Travel is fatal to prejudice, fatal to bigotry and narrow-mindedness. And many of our people need it sorely on these accounts. Broad, wholesome, charitable views of men and things cannot be acquired by vegetating in one little corner of the earth, all in one's lifetime. Mark Twain.
Did you like the candle?
This candle is for Kat Massey. She was 72 years old. She was the eldest of 5 siblings, very close to the age and role of my big sister, Kathy. Kat tended flowers in her small triangle park in Buffalo, New York. She also wrote for the Buffalo Challenger about schools, drugs, and guns. And she was killed a week ago Saturday. So this is for her, her devastated family members, community members, and those who now live in fear of resuming everyday activities like going to the grocery store or pharmacy. So.
I have come to announce the death of my youngest son, Andrew, to my deep regret and despite the efforts of his family. Andrew lived in such a way that one of his older brothers predicted that he would die before his parents did. Now that has happened. Such events are like climate change. You know that they're coming, but when they do come, they hurt anyway.
I'm lighting this candle mostly out of gratitude. In January of 2017, I wandered into this place wondering if maybe it could be a place where a mixed-race queer Buddhist could raise his transracially adopted children. And I really appreciate how wonderful a home this has been to me and my family. Unfortunately, due to a number of circumstances, including our own fears about what's been happening with the Supreme Court, our families decided that it would be safest for us to move back to California. And so we will be leaving by the end of July so that the girls can start kindergarten in their new home in Sacramento. Thank you.
Joseph. What a loss. I'm so sorry.
Well, not too many joys. This is sort of a joy and a concern. I'm going to light this candle to honor and to thank Keitha and Bob Whitaker, who will also be moving in June to Athens, Georgia, to be with their family, especially their wonderful daughter, the Reverend Dr. Pippin Whitaker, who will become the minister, excuse me, at the UU Church in Athens. I want to just say a quick word about everything they've done for us, and we'll always be grateful. Keitha has been our CYRE director, our membership chair, and probably other things I'm forgetting. And Bob has been board treasurer and chair of Denominational Connections. They are an absolutely wonderful couple and family, and we will miss them greatly, but we wish them the very, very best.
I have a virtual candle. My granddaughter, I only have one granddaughter, this is a joy. She's going to become a school psychologist. She's been down here a couple of times, lives in Wisconsin, and she just got engaged. That's all.
Okay. And I light one last candle for those joys and concerns that remain in our hearts. To ponder everything we've heard, let's have a moment of meditation. Thank you. And now I'm up next to give you an editorial. And you can't get your phone out. I guess the first question, this is an editorial by the Committee on Exploring Denominational Change, which is one of our new committees. And I guess the first question anybody would ask is why another editorial? We want to give you more information about the purpose of this committee and what's happening in our wider denomination. This committee, which as I said, is called Exploring Denominational Change, was established to inform and engage this congregation about proposed changes and some changes that are already underway in the Unitarian Universalist Association. We talk about that as the UUA. That's your denomination. For the past 5 years, the UUA, the Unitarian Universalist Association, has focused on an unprecedented, widespread cultural transformation to eliminate systemic racism and white supremacy culture, both within the association and within Unitarian Universalism. This shift began in April of 2017 after a dispute over hiring practices, which was followed by the resignation of the UUA president, Peter Morales. So this started about 5 years ago. This was when the board appointed the Commission on Institutional Change to conduct an audit of white privilege and the structure of power within Unitarian Universalism and to analyze structural racism and white supremacy within the UUA. The Commission's 2020 report, which is called Widening the Circle of Concern, comprises the UUA's core mission priorities, and it provides a blueprint for the association, congregations, and UUs across the whole country to dismantle white supremacy culture. Today, I want to tell you why you ought to care about any of this. The changes that are happening right now and planned in the UUA and congregations are based primarily on recommendations in this document, and I brought a copy today. This is Widening the Circle of Concern. The uncontested assumption of this document was that rampant racism can be identified in the structure and operation of our national organization and in local UU member congregations across the U.S. That's us. This report, with its recommended solutions and strategies, has not been embraced by all UUs. So a lot of, how would you put it, lively discussion is happening within UU circles. Because implementation of the recommendations would be so widespread, impacting just about everything in UUA, the operation, the governance, its purpose, the wording of the principles, hiring practices, programs, social outreach, all of it, I feel that UUs really need to understand what's in here. You need to read the report. It's available on the UUA website as a PDF document for free, or you can order it along with, and there's also on this website a lot of other resources that support this. So if you go on that website, you can find a lot of that. It's a good place to at least begin for background on all this. One specific topic that you may have heard mentioned concerns the bylaws of the actual association. In June, all the delegates to our annual conference, the General Assembly, are going to vote, and we have 3 going, are going to vote on a proposed business resolution calling on the UUA board to conduct a thorough review and a rewrite of the entire UUA bylaws. A bylaws commissions will then be named, given a charge, and over several years, the process will begin. At each General Assembly over the next few years, the delegates are going to consider amendments and vote for changes. We don't know what many of the rewrites will even look like yet, but we believe we need to be a part of this conversation. So that's why our committee will begin discussions that we hope to have with this congregation over the next few months. We want you to know what these changes may entail and what they may mean for UUs in Columbia, and to help us find a way that we can have a voice in this. Some of the changes recommended in this report are monumental. There's a serious disagreement about what the purpose and nature of our religion is going to be, especially about our strategies for combating racism and for balancing individual faith-community responsibilities. But I guess I want to close this by saying this is a family conflict. That means we can agree to disagree, and we can do it with respect and love. That's the spirit in which we want to start these discussions. Meanwhile, we'll keep you updated as we schedule these conversations with the congregation. Stay tuned for more from the Committee on Exploring Denominational Change. Okay, back to our regularly scheduled program. This congregation contributes to a Share the Plate, where half of our cash collection goes to a charity each month. And it's the way we give back to the community that we live in. This month's Share the Plate is, talk about timing, Planned Parenthood. And Allison Teratio is here to tell you a little bit more.
Thank you all for having me. Again, I'm Allison Teratio, and I'm a neighbor down on Duncan Street. So some of you all have seen me here before, and maybe some of you all see me around the neighborhood sometimes. Yes, the timing of this month's Share the Plate could not be more appropriate, I guess. Even since I last saw you, we have had the leak of the Supreme Court draft opinion around the overturn of Roe versus Wade, which would overturn almost 50 years of precedent of people in the United States having access to safe, legal abortion up until fetal viability. The Supreme Court basically says, no, this was not a good decision, and we're going to send it back to the states. Since then, we have seen not only what is happening since the Texas law came into effect in September of people in Texas who need abortions needing to go to neighboring states. One of those states was Oklahoma. Now the people who were going to Oklahoma can no longer do that because Oklahoma has passed a Texas-style ban. So if you're unfamiliar, those are the kinds where citizens press charges against, make claims against each other. We call them vigilante bills or tattletale bills or however you want to call it. The Texas bill is for a 6-week ban. So if you know someone who is seeking abortion or helping someone find an abortion after 6 weeks, that is illegal. The Oklahoma bill goes one step further, and it says that basically life starts at conception. And so anything that interferes with the ongoing life of a fertilized egg becomes illegal. And so what that means is that, well, let's just talk pregnancy. You can't even really know that you're pregnant until you have enough of the hormones of pregnancy to register on a pregnancy test. And that's usually at least 2 weeks after conception. What this bill goes to is it will interfere with certain forms of birth control. It will interfere with intrauterine devices and some forms of the pill. It will also interfere with people's capacity to seek fertility treatments by way of in vitro fertilization. This has ripple effects and will have ripple effects all over the country. We have Texas and Oklahoma. If the worst comes to pass, as we are expecting it essentially to do, many states have what are called trigger laws, and those will outright ban abortion when Roe is overturned. Other states, like South Carolina, already have old laws on the books that were protected by Roe. In 2021, in February, there was a bill signed into law that was a 6-week ban. That is not in effect because Roe has stood. If we lose Roe, South Carolina will go to the courts and ask for the 6-week ban to be put into effect. That will mean that people in South Carolina will now need to go to North Carolina. And we will see that Texas goes north, Oklahoma goes north, South Carolina goes north, and the people who can provide care in those states will be put at their limits. At Planned Parenthood, we have had discussions about this for some time, even for years, what will happen, and how can we best prepare to expand services so that we can try to meet the demand that will come. So we will have more days per week of care. We will have longer hours. We will be able to expand where perhaps there was a facility that was really only prepared to handle abortion care up until 13 weeks. We will be able to expand beyond that for people who need abortions past that time. We will also try to expand care in terms of navigating patients, because we know that patients will be traveling farther. They'll not be familiar with our locations. And even we see that already. Even here in Columbia, we see people having to drive sometimes from Georgia, sometimes from other parts of the state. They don't know Columbia that well. They don't know where our health center is, and they are very much taken aback by the protest activity. And so multiply that by people who have traveled farther. They've had to get childcare. We know that people seeking abortions, about 60% already are parents. So those people have had to take off time from work. They've had to get childcare, and they've had to make travel arrangements, which makes all of this take more time and more and cost more. So that's what's going on. In May, since I've seen you last, the South Carolina State Legislature has signed a sine die resolution. And if you're not into the inner workings of the State House here, that resolution says we're ending legislative session. However, we can come back for certain things. Often those things relate to the budget. Some budget items we have to go back and forth about. In the sine die resolution, there is also permission for the legislature to address abortion. So while we already have a 6-week ban on the books, we anticipate some of the lawmakers to come back and put forward something that is more extreme. That will likely happen in July. So I urge you to pay attention and to take any actions that you feel moved to take. Here, as part of my role, one of the things that I'll be encouraging people to do is to come to the State House with me. I'd love to do that with you. I also need people to talk in groups at home about abortion. Get your friend groups together and openly learn how to talk about abortion. We often wrap this language in euphemism, a woman's right to choose, reproductive health care, those kinds of things. But we really need to talk about what these things mean. We need to talk openly about sex education. We need to talk about contraception and what that really means. What really is a Plan B and what does it do? We need to talk about miscarriage with each other. We already know that people in Texas are unable to get the drugs that they need to manage miscarriages. When a pregnancy is not completely spontaneously expelled, sometimes a drug is needed to help release all of the contents of that pregnancy. If there is tissue that's left behind, people can get very, very sick. And doctors are scared to give people the help that they need. We will need to help each other seek care and get information about where to get care. I also want to just alert this congregation to the abundance of what people call crisis pregnancy centers. We sometimes call them fake clinics or anti-abortion centers. Those are places, and I'll just say, we've had Midlands Gives since I've last seen you. During Midlands Gives, the top money getter in that fundraiser for 501c3 organizations was a group that promotes that essentially promotes itself as a crisis pregnancy center. It has an RV that sits outside the Planned Parenthood probably close to every day. It has one of those big free ultrasound signs on the side. It also has a neon open, like a taco truck. Wild to me. When people go into those vans or to those storefronts, they give over their information. They give their name, they give their phone number, they give their address, they give their email address. They think they're walking into a healthcare provider and that their information is safe. They think they are covered by HIPAA. They are not. If you walk in and you take that pregnancy test and you get that ultrasound and they have your name, they have your phone number, they have your address, you are at risk. If you lose that pregnancy, if you seek abortion care after that, those people, there's no telling what will happen. We need to talk about that with each other because those places are not safe for others to go into. Okay, so thank you all. I didn't expect to feel so much emotion today as I spoke to you, but I cannot emphasize enough how dire the situation is and how bad it will be for lots of people. I understand wanting to move your family. I have a 13-year-old. Thank you all for having me.
This congregation contributes to Share the Plate every month. And as I said, half of our plate this month is going to Planned Parenthood. If you're contributing by check, please write Share the Plate on the memo line, or you may also make an online contribution. Those of you on streaming may certainly contribute too. You'll find the link to the UUCC website at uucolumbia.org. Ushers, if you would please come forward and collect the offering. We receive these gifts with gratitude and appreciation. We are a giving community.
When I was in seminary, my preaching teacher said, if you can't say it in 16 minutes, it's not worth doing. And so I wanted to assure you, I have my clock here to watch. Everywhere we hear about polarization, everywhere. Just this morning in a group that my husband and I were part of, the Methodists are splitting. They are splitting into two denominations because they can't agree. We're hearing UUA has, everybody's worried about white supremacy culture, but how to move forward is a big question that people haven't known. Today I wanted to talk about the difference between listening to learn and listening to persuade. How many of you have at times been in a highly polarized conversation and it's just really, all the emotions are going up on both sides. And it's like you wait for them to grab a breath of air and you want to jump in and say what you feel is the right way or the right answer. That's listening to persuade. And today I really want to encourage all of you, as I have myself, in learning more about how to listen to learn. So we're Unitarian Universalists. I've only been one for I think 8 years now. But I really get it that we really believe in the worth and dignity of every human being. And we really are committed to justice and equality and compassion. So how do we live this out? When I'm talking about love today, I'm talking about the form of love that the Greeks called agape. And I think a lot of American Christians always called it agape love, which is fine. But this is the type of love that I'm going to be talking about today. I want to go back to the 1990s, when I got this idea with other friends, all women, that we noticed that in San Francisco, there were huge, kind of almost violent things happening outside the Planned Parenthood. That as women would come to the clinic, there were always right-to-lifers out front, and they just filled the whole front so that any women that wanted to come into the clinic had to kind of walk through a gauntlet with people really yelling at them. In some ways, the people yelling at them were doing it out of their belief in a love of life, that they felt that they were really right. The women that were going through the gauntlet were usually in very vulnerable states. And there were women in the city that became what were known as abortion escorts. And those women would coordinate with the women when they went to the parking lot, would go into the cars, and then would walk them through the gauntlet. And tensions were really, really high. It was very polarized. And so we came up, this group of women, we came up with, let's take 10 pro-life people and 10 abortion escorts and have a retreat for a weekend. And so we did. We chose a really beautiful Catholic retreat center, and there we were. And people started coming in at dinner on Friday night, and kind of each group kind of hanging out with their own, kind of suspicious of what's going to happen. But especially the right-to-lifers, I think, really thought, if only we explain, all these people are going to come to God. They were really there for a high purpose. I just want to say that both sides had hearts that were concerned, and it was really easy for us to pick one side or the other and to make the other side bad or wrong or whatever. So Friday night, dinner was kind of separated, and then we got into the meeting room, and we facilitators, we asked them to help us write on a whiteboard all the stereotypes of the other. You know, maybe the escorts might say, well, baby killers or whatever. They were, I mean, it was the opposite way, but calling each other names and names. And we found out once all the names were on both sides that it was almost the same thing, that there was a lot of not knowing the other, but there was a lot of stereotyping. And I think that as we started to realize all that was being said, people started being curious, like, what does this really mean? And so we had let them go to bed, have their own conversations. And then in the morning breakfast, there was just a little bit of interaction of the two groups. They were just kind of curious about who are you and why do you believe this way? And we went in and began the work of getting to know each other, getting to really see the other as a human with a heart, with emotions, with thoughts, just checking out what was actually going on. In the afternoon, we did an exercise called a fishbowl. Maybe some of you have done that before, where one group is in the center and they share what's true for them, and the other group is on the outside, listening, not responding, not interrupting, just listening. And the escorts went first, and they spoke of so many stories of pain and suffering that they observed in the women, and they're feeling called by God, many of them, or I think many of them were humanists too, but they were all by a higher power feeling called to reach out with compassion to the women that were coming to the clinic. This really confused the pro-lifers. They just didn't know what to do with it. They were just, it didn't fit the stereotype that they had thought about. And after it was all over, we switched places and the pro-lifers went in, and they were in the center, and the escorts listened to them too. And those pro-lifers spoke about their cause as being just and compassionate, and it was a pretty intense afternoon. Again, we had plenty of breaks so people could kind of mull over what they'd heard and speak with each other. So at dinner, we worked on listening skills and how to have positive regard for each other. And by Sunday, something really seemed to shift. They seemed to see each other as other engaged women who were acting out of heart. And I'm not saying at all that there was agreement on the two positions, but I think there was a lot of learning about how to listen, how to affirm the worth and dignity of other people with differing views. I know Pat mentioned the UUA is now debating how to really look at white supremacy culture. And some people feel real strongly on one side, we should do this. Others might say, no, we shouldn't do this at all. And it's so important for us, not just nationally, but for us as a congregation. It's so important for us to hold the bond, to be what's called the beloved community. That is our hope. And so it's really important as we enter any kind of conversations, and this could apply with a partnership or a husband and wife or talking to a child. It can be used any kind of way, listening with our two ears. And then I would challenge each of you to ask yourself, am I open to a different opinion? Am I aversive to change? That means I don't like change and I don't want change. Are we holding that same old, if I just explain it to you, you'll understand with me and agree? Oh, that's one we all have fallen into. And then two big questions. What does justice and compassion call each of you to be? And like another, what does compassion and justice call you to do? To do. It's so easy to be passive and do nothing. You know, to say, well, I'm not going to get into this, or, you know, I'm not going to get involved, or I don't know what to think. That happens a lot too. We've got passivity. You got aggressiveness, where my way or the highway. I don't want to talk to you unless you will agree with me. But we're going for what's called assertiveness. That is, in these polarized conversations, it's like, I hear you and I disagree. I hear you and I disagree. That's what beloved community is about. It's about speaking the truth in love. It's about acknowledging the pain that might be there. It is also admitting that we don't all have all the answers and that we don't have all knowledge, and we're wanting to learn. So all the time I've ever been here, I've never heard any verbal violence, ever, or even coercive, which I'm so grateful for. But when we're out in the community of Columbia, we may bump into that. And it's really hard. Our egos come up. We all have egos. And an ego, according to Ram Dass, an ego is a great servant, but is a lousy master. A lousy master. And I always think of it as being a driver of a big yellow school bus, and a crazy 5-year-old on the front row comes up and pulls my shirt and says, I can drive, I know I can drive, I want to drive the bus. And I always just think of the highest, wisest part of us can say, maybe without a word, but just a smile and pointing, but sit down and be quiet. You know, you could do that without even any words. So I'm just wanting all of us to know, whenever we get into a polarized situation, the very first voice that we should listen to is our internal voice. We should listen to, what are the beliefs that I bring to this conversation? You know, what am I about? What voice inside of me is saying? And I will say, one way to know that it's your ego is that time when you feel like, I've got to say something, right? It usually brings us into trouble. That's the time to pause and ask yourself what's going on. So I'm hoping that in any conversations that you have, that you would be able to live with ambiguity, not having things wrapped up perfectly. And I hope that you would be actively trying to build trust in every relationship that you're on. And that'll mean stop talking many times, listen deeply, don't interrupt. Women converse eye to eye and knee to knee. That's the very best way for women. But for men, it's different. For men, they really are able to converse shoulder to shoulder, maybe working on a project or something together, but still they have conversations too. So hopefully there's listening for understanding, and that you don't have to agree, you don't have to believe what they're saying, but you can ask powerful questions. Powerful questions. So I hope that you'll be thinking about this. What can I do? What does compassion and justice call me to do? Call me to be? It's so important. So as I wrap up, I'm asking, how can we use these conversations at UU with UUA in a broader sense, like maybe with gun violence conversations here in Columbia?
or maybe at Planned Parenthood, or there are many other. I always want to find the group that wants to bring Pitchfork Tillman down. If ever I find those people, I'm going to stand with them. So how can we become more skilled and loving communicators in a time of a polarized world? As you use, we can make a difference in a highly charged culture war that surrounds us here. And what is our role? What is your role? What is my role in this time of polarization? I wanted to close by a quote by Valerie Carr from her book, See No Stranger. She says, revolutions do not happen only in grand moments in public view, but also in small pockets of people coming together to inhabit a new way of being. We birth beloved community by becoming beloved community. Thank you.
You'll find our closing hymn in your teal hymnal. It's number 1008, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place. I invite you to stand as you're willing and able and join me in singing. Please wear your mask while singing.
When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, and we see our faces in each other's eyes. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a when we tell our story from deep inside, and we listen with a loving mind, and we hear our voices in each other's words, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we share the silence of sacred space, and the God of our hearts stirs within, and we feel the power of each other's faith. When our heart is in a holy place.
I love that, the sound of children. Please remain standing for closing words. Which I seem to have lost. Yes, yes. Well, it was by Richard Rohr, and he was encouraging everyone to come from that place of not knowing and curiosity. And may we all go out and be conduits of love and curious and yet courageous and good listeners. Thank you.
Please join in our congregational benediction.
That concludes the service. Thank you for coming today.
And you're welcome to stay and visit outside through the double doors off the social hall. And for those of you in the sanctuary who've joined us on streaming, we'll see you next week.